more than 1,000 minority college students, business leaders, and distinguished educators. Talented young Black and Hispanic business professionals, all mixing, talking, learning from each other. INROADS has brought these historically isolated groups together since it started in Chicago in 1970. The National Student Training Institute at the University of Tennessee, Knoxville, was but one event in the evolution of a unique nationwide career development organization that prepares outstanding minorities for leadership. Many people, white, Black, and brown, helped founder Frank Card turn his dream into reality.
I'd like to introduce you to Frank Card for some comments that I think you'll find very appropriate for the evening. Frank?
I'm a very fortunate person in that some 15 years ago, I did dream a dream, and you people have made it happen. So I'm fortunate, and I'm also very appreciative that you proved that dream could be a reality. You proved that the talent that I believed was out there in America and the Black and brown communities was indeed there. So I'm a very fortunate person, and I have you all and your predecessors to thank for it. A number of you have asked me how INROADS came to be founded. I'd like to share some of it with you. It's true, it was that simple conviction that talent was not in just one part of our society, but it had to be sprinkled all over the society. It had to be in the Black community and the brown community, as well as in the white community. But I had a unique experience in Washington.
I remember
back in the early 60s.
Boarding a bus in New York City early one morning. It was about 4:30 a.m. and taking that drive to Washington and arriving in the city along about 7:30 or 8 o'clock. And I remember seeing at that early hour the people lining the streets, and then finally arriving at the mall between the Washington Monument and the Lincoln Memorial, and a hot morning there, and the crowd kept increasing from 100,000 to 200 to 300. I'm not sure how many thousands finally. And then the speakers coming on the podium, senators and congressmen and the movie stars, and then finally a rather chunky Black preacher got up there, and how he started speaking in a very slow cadence without any particular warmth to his voice, and then the Spirit caught him, and he started to talk about his dream.
I have a dream that one day, right down in Georgia and Mississippi and Alabama, the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to live together as brothers. I have a dream this afternoon.
I remember the feeling that went through the crowd as Martin Luther King expressed his deeply held convictions and his nonviolent approach to solving some of the problems of our society. I really feel that was where I was first touched. I was first deeply moved to go ahead myself, and obviously with a lot of help, start INROADS.
What's that word mean?
I would see something like a spider web, something that is a support system.
A support system, good word.
But working together in unity.
Through summer internships and year-round training workshops, INROADS teaches talented minority students how to succeed in business.
Now. But networking simply means that I'm going to establish a group of people so that when I want something, I can get it. You cannot make it alone. You need a network. And so I want to teach you how to do that.
During the National Student Training Institute, Frank Carr and a few key people told us about how INROADS became what it is today.
The early days of starting an organization never are easy because you're trying to take what is only an idea and bring it into reality. And I really had some what I call white middle class ideas about what talented minorities needed in order to succeed in the world of business. And somehow I, at that point in time, thought being up in the mountains and rappelling and mountain climbing and the whole thing would bring out those skills that they needed. It really took two business leaders to bring me to my senses, and one was Raleigh Warner, chairman of Mobil Oil.
When Frank came in, I didn't really have any strong idea of what INROADS was, what he had in mind. I wanted to listen to him because he was an old friend. I had a regard for him. Here was a fellow who, late in life, at least late in his business career life, was shucking everything that he'd done and was embarking on a very risky thing, a brand new idea. And he came to, I'm sure, to see what kind of reaction I would have and see whether I thought that he could gain some support from the business community. And I said, yes, I did think he could get a lot of support from the business community. But I really think you're going in the wrong direction with these youngsters when you are thinking in terms of survival fitness. That isn't going to help them in the business community. I'd had the feeling then, and I still do today, that with many youngsters out of the ghetto, what you've got to do is you've got to instill in them the discipline that goes along with working for an organization. And it's fundamentally different, obviously, than anything that they've been exposed to before.
He actually took considerable time to critique the INROADS concept and help me rearrange my thinking and direct my thoughts into a more profitable vein. This whole idea of jobs and education, and that was what the minorities needed. These business leaders in particular were key. They made it possible for someone with only a dream to get in the doors of some of the biggest companies in America. They put their reputation behind what I was doing. And without that, I couldn't see the chief executives and the chief operating officers of these big companies.
What we're going to do is do a case study today on how to market INROADS. Okay? Now, how many of you have already marketed INROADS?
Beverly Gledd, an early INROADS graduate, is a second vice president of Chicago's Northern Trust Bank, her sponsoring company.
Frank held the program together. A lot of the students respected him. It wasn't that Frank was the man behind the jobs. His approach was very genuine. You felt that he really cared about you. And he really held that program together in the early days. At the beginning, the program would get role models, people in the business community that have done very well, and they would serve on panel discussions and talk about their career path and what they've done, and that was extremely helpful.
It wasn't accepted 10, 20 years ago for having a male working for a female. But I think that the females, as we minorities, are showing or have shown that they can be just as good. And it's going to take time for the rest of the males to accept this. There is no doubt that there's still some hesitance. I wouldn't mind working for a female. Maybe.
Two gentlemen back.
Juan Garcia, a member of the first INROADS class of 25 interns in Chicago, manages production and inventory control for William Wrigley Jr. Company, his sponsor during college.
When I first got involved, I didn't even know what the word INROADS meant. To me, it was just a summer job. I took it very lightly. Well, then as time went on, I found that INROADS was more than a summer job. I found that it was a training institution. The real business world is to try to do as much as you can. This is what it's all about. It's not well, I made it here, I'm going to sit down, and I'm going to relax. You're going to find that you're going to be reading more, you're going to find you're going to be working more, and it's just more involved, and that's the way to get up to the top. They wanted to train you properly to be able to cope with the change of getting out of the barrio and getting into the business world. And that transition wouldn't have been as easy as it was had I not gone through the very intensive programs and workshops.
Okay, given a relative value scale of 100%, what do you think performance would rate?
No, about 15, 20.
The experts say 10%. Yeah. Okay. Now remember, performance is important. Okay, very important. But most of the people that you're competing with are competent performers. Why? Industry has replaceable talent. If you don't perform, you go out and bring somebody else in.
And I think in the early days, I went too much for the smile and the winning personality, and not enough for this quality of resiliency, the ability to keep bouncing back, not to be overwhelmed by this new culture, this white middle-class culture, because I often talk about a boxer being in a ring and being periodically decked, and the way they keep coming back for more. You just can't get them down, and that's the quality that our young people need, in order to survive in corporate America.
Well, I was on the board when I was a student, and that was a tremendous learning experience for me. Got a chance to see how big businessmen really work, and they really treated the students on the board with respect. Our opinions were respected. Our input was extremely important. They were not patronizing at all. Anytime we had to have special board meetings, we were always included. And that is probably one of the more important times of my life, because I learned so much.
I think we tend to stereotype two groups in our society. I think we obviously tend to stereotype minorities, and I feel obviously deeply about that, or I wouldn't be in this kind of work. But I think the other group are businessmen. And I think we do it to the detriment of our society. They have a lot to offer, and I think it's very important to recognize their concerns, and certainly in our organization to give them a chance to be part of INROADS.
The waistbands are going to be around your waist. You're supposed to respond to this person who's talking or who's in the conversation according to their waistband. But don't look at your waistband. And don't tell the person what their waistband says. Let's start off with student rights so we can change the subject. Okay? What do you think about student rights?
I think students' rights should be,
You're right.
I believe we should go to the president and demand equal opportunity in anything we want.
Okay, go ahead and have a seat. Everyone can sit down. Okay? That exercise primarily was developed and was made so that you would know what it felt like to be in a stereotypical situation. The roles that you play primarily have an impact on how people see you and the roles that you're expected to play.
It was fun. It was a challenge. I was getting a good response. The companies were interested. The idea that there was talent out there and that it could be developed by someone independently of the federal government.
You know, this morning I was asked why the recent interest and emphasis in the development of Hispanic communities, and I did relate that we'd talked about how the Hispanic communities will reach or really surpass the size of the black community. That was the result of this grant to help cities with basically Hispanic populations or large Hispanic populations.
When introduced to Frank Carr, Richard Black headed Merrimont Corporation, one of INROADS' first 17 sponsors. He remains a staunch supporter.
When I first talked with Frank Carr and really heard about INROADS, I was intrigued because this was the first time I had heard of any program where the people in business themselves had the opportunity to recognize that we can do something ourselves with a tremendous resource that exists in this country. But more so, it was the possibility for business to take an interest in this resource itself. It was more so a possibility of, for once in our lives, let's don't let the government do it. Let's don't let somebody else do it. Let's do it ourselves. And that's really the way Frank was able to con me into spending what got to be a lengthy tenure with INROADS, which has been, I hope, rewarding to them. It was certainly rewarding to me.
As the first chairman of the National Board, Richard Black helped structure the organization's expansion into other cities.
Frank Carr had such great ideas of where this could go and the involvement you could get throughout the country, but it had to be more than just a vision. It had to be something that had an organization that could sustain it past just a few of us, and really sustain it past Frank. And I must say, you look today, and that has been done.
Reginald Dixon, now president, joined INROADS in 1972 as the first director of the St. Louis affiliate.
It was back in late 1972. I was a teacher at that time, basically teaching science and mathematics in St. Louis, in the public schools and that. At the same time, I was working on a business degree at Washington University at nights, and a friend of mine gave me a call to tell me about INROADS. The concept fascinated me, and I met Frank Carr, and I must say that it was a risky kind of first experience from the aspect that INROADS basically was unproven. Chicago was in its basically third year of operation in that, but because of the potential success of the organization in Chicago and some corporate board members there, they decided to bring the program to St. Louis, and hence I first heard about it, and I was moved by what I had heard. One of the things that I liked about INROADS, though, is that it was kind of like the best of both possible worlds. That is, it satisfied a desire in me to teach and to work with young people. At the same time, I had deep business aspiration, and it really was able to satisfy both, to use what I thought skills that I had in both areas.
An early and long-time booster of INROADS, John Hannigan, then chairman of Brunswick and Chicago and later chairman of Genesco in Nashville, offered to lead the expansion. He suggested St. Louis first.
I knew the people, so it was easy for me to talk to them. I knew that the bankers would be interested in promoting something like this. And it's an industrial city as well as a money center, so it seemed like an ideal thing. The same thing later was the reason for going to other cities like Milwaukee and Cleveland and Nashville. So what I really thought would be the best places for INROADS to get started, places where it would be easy for them, where they were needed, and where the business establishment would welcome them and support them.
You are using the measurement criteria of that company in order to get ahead. You didn't set up those rules. You didn't decide that social interaction was important. They've decided that. That's their game. They said that that's important. That's how everybody in this firm has moved from year to year, is by getting along with one another, doing things beyond the office hours, going to these events, being supportive of the company, being positive.
The mission of INROADS is to prepare talented minorities, blacks, Hispanics, and Native American, to prepare them for leadership in corporate America and in the community. And if you notice, I said in the community instead of their community, because we're talking about preparing young people for leadership for the community at large.
Randy Sanderson, one of the first St. Louis graduates, interned at the May Company. In 7 years, he rose to Director of Financial Planning and Analysis in Los Angeles.
Believe in yourself. Believe you can do, okay? And if you be very assertive about that, people will begin to believe in you. But you got to believe it yourself. Nothing is impossible. Nothing is impossible.
Use your mind, because if you don't, someone else will.
Good point.
When I reflect back and think about what INROADS has done for me, I came out of a pretty poor family, and there was another world out there, and you really did not know that there was a middle class. And then I met INROADS in high school. I had the smarts to go to college, but really thought to get a job, make some money was the best way for me to go. But I was convinced by INROADS. They had a program. I trusted INROADS. I felt that they were somewhat of a big brother to me, and I could use them as a bridge to make something out of my life. INROADS gave me an opportunity to see people make a very comfortable living by using their brains and not their hands.
So we're dealing with a total person that once that they have gone through the INROADS experience, they are indeed head and shoulders up above a student that might not have had the benefits of INROADS.
So look back, got an accounting degree, I worked hard, I have a CPA certificate, I have a very comfortable job. I received 7 promotions in 6 years with the main company. I would not have done that without the help of INROADS.
My first year as director of the INROADS St. Louis affiliate, we had 25 students also at some 15 companies. From that, we helped start the Milwaukee organization the next year in 1974. Then we went to Pittsburgh, Cleveland, Nashville, Tennessee. And then in 1978, we began the startup of Kansas City. The startup of Kansas City was very important, I believe, to the organization because, number one, a minority person, myself, started Kansas City. And there was some doubt on the part of many individuals that a minority could go into a city and marshal the resources and put an INROADS organization together. So with the help of a number of individuals, I was able to do that. And Kansas City really has grown over the years.
Identify the needs of that group, see if it's working, and change it, make it change, make it happen. Leadership.
What I look for in the future is continued growth of the organization, but controlled growth. We are concentrating on cities that have a high Hispanic population. We would like to bring more Hispanics into the organization and the student population, the staff population, and in management. And we feel that the best way to do this is to open up new cities in which Hispanics have a high representation.
I want you to write down.
One of the other things that we're really concentrating on in the future is really the alumni. We are a business and we produce a product, and that product is our alumni. So as it relates to alumni organization in various cities, as they mature in that, we want to make sure that we have strong alumni organization. We want to make sure that they are contributing back to the community. And we will want to make sure that they're going to work for their sponsoring companies in increased numbers. And how about you?
Oh, I was just saying that I really enjoyed it. I'm really glad. It's a shame.
There's a difficult process coming from an altogether different culture and suddenly just being pushed out there with nobody around it. But with INROADS around, you really won't have to feel that because INROADS is going to be there. If you're having trouble on the campus, you're having trouble at home, whatever, INROADS is going to be there.
The internship that you were discussing.
I have a very good job with the accounting firm, and I think it's going to be beneficial for both of us.
Good.